Welcome back to another episode of Health is Wealth. And thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. And as always, I am beyond grateful and thankful from the bottom of my heart to each and every one of you who's tuning into today's episode and tuning in to support the podcast. As every Sunday, I am dropping a new episode, just sharing words and thoughts of things that I'm learning on my own journey of life, things that I'm learning for the first time, things I'm just understanding maybe in a different point of view, in hopes that it brings value into your life, perhaps inspires you and motivates you today. Maybe you hear something for the first time, or maybe again, you might see something different in a different point of view through a different lens. And so thank you once again for being here. What I wanted to talk today about is take that risk. Taking that risk, right? I think that's sometimes what life is about, is taking a risk, that leap of faith, take a chance. I think it has a lot to do with us, really trying to get to the next level in life. Because I believe, taking a risk, taking a chance on something is really the only way to know if something's going to work out or not. There's this idea that, with risk comes reward, because oftentimes we can be very afraid to take any kind of risk in life, right? Because it usually leads to this idea of uncertainty, of, things that could go wrong, things that might not work out, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe what it leads to is often us playing in this safe zone, just playing to where we're in this comfort zone where nothing can really go wrong, because we're not doing anything. We're not taking any risks. And so if we play it safe and we don't try to make any risky chances on anything, then it's hard for us to lose. But I think oftentimes that could be the biggest risk, is not taking any kind of risk at all. Because I think what that can lead to then also is that if we don't take any kind of risk, then there's no way for us to advance anywhere in life, for things to get better. Right? When we play safe, things are just kind of stagnant. We're just, it's like being in a live video game and you just press pause on your character and it's like you're just afraid to move. Like when you think about that, that's a pretty good analogy here. When you think about a game, if you play video games or ever have, which I think a lot of people have at least played a game, a time or two, is that the whole point of a game is exploring, right? Is exploring, the levels, the maps, the quests, seeing where your character can go and how your character can level up and get to different levels in life. But without moving that character, without seeing what happens if I take this path, what if we do this with this character? What if we try that move? What if we open up that door? Whatever it may be. How can that character ever advance to winning that game? How could that character ever advance to discovering more maps and levels? And as we know, if you play games, the exciting thing about it is the mystery of what happens if you do this. What happens if you go down that route? If you try that, if you make this move or do that move, that's the excitement of it. But as in life, if we never move, if we are just if our characters here, us in life, just stay unstuck as life is moving, then how can life get better? How can we become better? How can we live a more exciting life if we're afraid to open up that door, go down that path, see what happens if we do this? There's just no way to find out. And I think, when we go down that road, again, the riskiest thing is that even if we're playing it safe, still things can go wrong, but you're more planning on playing on the defense of things than playing on offense of things in life and trying to get ahead, trying to figure things out. More or less, you're just waiting for things to happen, which can be very risky in itself. I believe, sometimes we think playing it safe means that, that we're immune to anything happening to us, but life happens, situations happen, everything still happens, but if we play it safe, then there's no way for us to excel anywhere in life, to advance to the next level, to get to the next, thing. And so that's why I believe life is truly all about taking risk, and that looks so different in so many different ways. Sometimes it's taking a risk and taking a chance on something new. Sometimes it's taking a chance and risk on something you're not quite sure of. Sometimes it's taking that same risk, of going the opposite direction than where everybody else is going, or doing the opposite thing than everybody else is doing. There's a lot of different ways to play this idea of taking risk. But I feel that if we can get, used to this idea that, without risk, there is no reward, and understanding that the reward is the ability that we get, I guess, the outcome or result of us willing to push through certain emotions to take that risk, then that reward comes from having the courage to do that. Anyone who has ever excelled and has succeeded and done something huge in life didn't do it by playing it small or safe. They had to go big. They had to take some risk. They had to take some leap of faith. They had to take some chances. Sometimes you roll the dice and it doesn't work out. Sometimes you roll the dice and you win big, and there's no way to actually tell most times. But it's just like shooting a basketball into a hoop. You'll never know how many shots you can make if you never take a shot, right? You can shoot at the basket 15 times. You can miss 5 times, and you can, make it 15 times, 20 times, whatever, right? But if we never take shots on goals, then the outcome and the answer is always going to be no. And so for me, as I think about this in my own life, I realize how important it is if I want to get to the next step, if I want to advance to the next level, if I want to unlock the next character, the next version of myself, right? Is I've got to be willing to take risk. And I'm personally okay with it. I know a lot of people, again, it just comes through emotions. It comes through not being risk adverse for sure. It's not easy for anybody to ever take risks because there's always going to be a 50-50. I'm going to take this risk. I'm going to take this chance. I'm going to take this shot. I'm going to take this leap of faith, and it's going to work or it's not. And that could be an emotional roller coaster for anybody. I would think for me, I look at it as like, you know what? God put me here. He put me here for a reason. If God's giving me another day, he's giving me another day for a reason. And I can either take the risk of playing it safe and not doing anything and hope things still work out the way I want them to, or I could play the offense of this and take a risk and see what happens. And maybe there's one move I make, maybe there's one risk I take, may not be it, but then maybe I know I have a for sure, like, okay, this thing didn't work out, so let me try something else. Let me try a different thing, take a different path, take a different, course, take a different risk and take a different chance. And maybe that's going to be the thing that works out. But the idea of it all is I'll never know unless I'm willing to take that, unless we are willing to take that. And again, sometimes taking a risk can be going in a completely opposite direction than where you've been going in life. Sometimes we're going down a certain path. We think we're meant to go down a certain way, and then something's telling you inside, maybe we've got to go a different direction. That could be taking in a risk too. I often think about this, especially as an adult, being older now, with adults who are, who have been in a job field, a certain career, their life is, their identity has only been into one thing of what they've done as a profession. And sometimes they take a risk of leaving it all to pursue their passion, pursue their what they feel is their purpose, pursue something that they want to do. And oftentimes taking that risk, especially later on in life, is trying something completely different, not guaranteed if it's going to work out or not. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But that's a part of the game. That's a part of the price to pay. That's a part of what it is. But I think there's something to be said for someone who has the courage to take the risk to do it. Because while most people will look at risk and look at chances and be like that, it's too risky. There's too many things that could go wrong. Those who have the courage to say, yeah, but what if things go right? What if this does work out? What if that is actually the path that I'm supposed to go down? It shows a lot about that person, and it shows a lot about, about them willing to do what they feel that they need to do and willing to, it's that curiosity to be like, what if the risk is me staying where I'm at? See, that's, again, sometimes we don't think about it. Sometimes we think playing it safe and staying in our comfort zone and not taking risk is playing it safe. But one of the biggest risks is you being exactly where you're at, because God's telling you there's something more. God's telling you there's something better. God's telling you there's another path for you. And so when I think about all this together, I think it's just about, again, taking risk in life. And we should be very open up to it and not always look at risk as being this bad thing, because taking a risk could be a great thing. Sometimes people take a risk and chance on something new, something different, something they feel they are being called to do. And it was the best move that they ever made in their life. And oftentimes look back and be like, I wish I took that chance. I wish I took that leap of faith. I wish I took that risk sooner. And because they were willing to take that chance and risk and leap of faith, they found what they were supposed to be finding. They opened up a door they were supposed to open up. They went down and went down a path that they were supposed to be going down, but without taking a risk. None of us are ever going to know. And so I guess the message here for today is take that risk. Life is too short. God didn't put us here and give us all these years to live to just play things safe and just stay stuck on the same level, not exploring everything in life, not exploring everything about who we are. And so for me, I have to remind myself of the same thing, to be like, hey, we've got to take more risks, because what's life worth without taking those risks? Because every time I take a risk, there is a chance. Again, yeah, things might not go the way I planned out, but then there's also the same chance of things going right and life becoming better, the quality of life for me, for my loved ones, for those around me, for so many different reasons, right? With the same chances of things not going right, they might as well, they might go, or with the same, percentage and chance of things going wrong, they can go right as well, right? And so I think if we're willing to take more chances and risk, we played the odds better for really starting to figure out what things are going to work, what things aren't, what things are meant to happen, and what things aren't as well. So don't be afraid to take risks. I think it's one of the biggest things for all of us that keeps us where we're at from advancing in life and anything, because we always look at risk and be like, it's all bad. Taking a risk is not good. If we play it safe, we can't get hurt. If we play it safe, there's no way things can go bad, And I truly believe that's not the way to think about it, because I believe that even if you feel you're safe, this world has shown us that even when you play it safe, right? Like things and situations and stuff that happens to us in life and the world together happens without us, even having to do anything. And sometimes playing it safe could be the biggest risk that we take, is by not moving around, not trying to find that thing we're being called to, not trying to find a better career path, not trying to, find a path that's going to take us to where we are meant to be and what we want to be doing with our life. So as I tell myself this, I tell you all as well. Let's take some risk in life, because that is what life is all about. That is what life's adventure is all about. And without taking risk, There's no way for us to get the rewards in life because the risk is what allows us to see what things are going to be worth it or not, what things are going to work out or not, and what things are the paths that we're supposed to be down or not. And if we ever expect to become something bigger and something more and live a bigger life, there's no way we're going to just wake up one day and it's all going to be there. It's just not. It's impossible. You play it safe. There is no way that life gets better. You just stay stagnant. And so I encourage us all, let's take some more risks today in life, because the biggest risk is not taking any at all. And we never know what risk we're not taking. That could be the very risk that changes, that answers all the prayers, that everything you've been praying to God for, that could just, change our entire life for forever, and generationally, if we're willing to take those risks. Because again, if you see people who succeed and people who have succeeded, they only got to where they got to by taking risk in their life, which oftentimes meant doing something new, going down a path they were uncertain of, going again in a different direction that the crowd was going. And there's so many different ways that this applies. But generally speaking, without taking risks, it's hard to get any reward out of life. So let's take some more risks today. Let's live life to the fullest, become the best version of ourselves possible, and live to our full maximum potential, which is why God created us to be here today. Thank you so much again for tuning into this week's episode. And as always, we will see you on the next one.